Hey guys, it's Rem, and today we're going to be doing a spirit perk tier list. So I'm going to be ranking all of the killer perks that currently exist in Dead by Daylight based on how good they are on spirits specifically. I've been really excited to do this for a while now actually, but I wanted to make sure I spent the proper time with all of the perks just to gain that knowledge and experience with all of them on her so I can talk about them to the best of my ability. But yeah, here we are now. So let's just get into it. So to start us off, of course, agitation. I mean, come on. Yes, I have given this its own category because, I mean, if you've watched me at all for the past year or two, you know that I love agitation. Agitation is a phenomenal perk for so many reasons. Not only is it really good for making sure that you can get to your Scourge hooks if that's part of your build, but hook placement is so important, especially for Spirit, because she can capitalize so well if she has a hook in a very good place, and agitation just allows you to do this every single time. Get a survivor exactly where you need them to be, which can be actually game ending in a lot of cases. Like, for example, if you're holding a 3 or 4 gen and you get a down somewhere on the map that isn't like in a far corner away on the opposite side of the map, you can drag that survivor into your gens, specifically into a corner, for example, and utilize that hook positioning to potentially get multiple tags on survivors trying to come in for the hook. They won't be able to work those gens safely with that hook in the corner in your gens. It just allows for so much snowball potential, and this, if the survivors don't play it perfectly, it can be, like I said, game ending in many scenarios. Hook placement is so important, and yeah, there's nothing really else to say. It's just a phenomenal perk if you know how to use it well. A lot of the time you don't need anything else. Fantastic perk. Okay, moving on. Alien Instinct. I think that this perk is decent. I'll get more into this as we continue on through all these lovely perks. But Spirit is kind of a tricky killer because when it comes to aura reading, because she can't see auras when she's facing, obviously, right? So she's kind of limited to what aura reading perks that can be useful to her. And this one isn't bad. I remember when this first came out and a lot of people were like, oh, this is gonna replace Barbeque, it's so good. I don't think it's as good as Barbeque, but having the information that it provides you with the furthest injured survivor is decent. It's decent. So yeah, that's where we're gonna put this. You'll always get value from this perk with Spirit, since you can get that information immediately after hooking somebody, which means you won't be in phase yet. So yeah, it's decent on her. Nurse's Calling. I would say that this is pretty similar to Alien Instinct in terms of the fact that, like, it's, you know, it's a aura reading perk. It's not one of the strongest, but the difference between Alien Instinct and Nurse's Calling is that it's a little bit less consistent in terms of the value you're going to get for it on Spirit specifically, because there is the chance that you're going to miss a lot of the value from nurses if you phase past the survivors that are healing. Obviously you won't be able to see the aura reading in that scenario, so yeah, it's a little bit less strong than Alien Instinct, unfortunately, because it can be a really good perk on other killers, but for Spirit specifically it's a little bit weaker, I think. Okay, moving on, we have Thunder Thighs, All Shaking Thunder. Again, kind of a weak perk. I'm gonna throw Coup de Grace with this as well, because they're both pretty similar. Although I will say that I think All Shaking Thunder is obviously even less strong than Coup de Grace, since it's a lot more situational in terms of you'll only get value from this when you drop off of a high point, right? Whereas Coup de Grace, you just have those stacks permanently until you use them when gens get completed. But the reason why I'm putting them in weak and niche is because although this can be really gimmicky, really fun, Spirit doesn't need them. Like, if you're able to hit your phases and you're confident in your tracking, more often than not, you'll come out of phase on top of the survivor, or you should. So you don't really need the long lunge because, well, at least when I play, I know, for example, I want to say probably 80% of my swings are short swings, because you come out of phase and you hit the survivor, right? So I'm not even regularly lunging a lot of the time unless I've used the entire duration of my phase and I have to swing and lunge a little bit in order to reach the survivor. Say if I'm using other add-ons that aren't movement speed, so don't make as much distance. But yeah, very, very rarely are you gonna ever need like a very long lunge with Spirit, so it's just kind of weak on her, unfortunately, even though it can be fun. So yeah. Awakened Awareness. I feel like I'm tempted to put this in Great because, like I said before, she is very limited on the orb reading perks that are good on her. And Awakened Awareness is one of them. You'll always get value from this perk with Spirit because obviously you're not phasing when you're carrying a survivor. So it's definitely not bad, but I do feel like it's kind of weird to run this on its own. Where Awakened Awareness shines the most is when you use it with Starstruck, so that you can, you know, get that information on the survivors that are around the hook that you know are now exposed from Starstruck, and then you can follow up after you hook the survivor with that exposed down. So I feel like I have to put it in good with combo because this is realistically the only time you're going to use this perk typically on Spirit is when you're pairing it with Starstruck. So we'll stick it there, methinks. Okay, Bamboozle. This is completely useless on Spirit. We got our first useless perk. Yeah, if you're vaulting windows with Spirit and you need Bamboozle, she may not be the killer for you. I hate to break it to you. Spirit is one of the only killers in the game that completely nullifies windows, since she can set up her husk to block windows. And when I say block windows, I mean that if she sets up her husk properly at a window and the survivor vaults into her husk through the window, the survivor will actually get stuck between the window and her husk. So they'll be stuck in place. You'll get the hit or the down every time if you set up your husk properly. But even aside from that, even if you don't, because of her chase power and her speed, a lot of the time, like, windows are completely nullified anyway, since you can just get the hit on the survivor regardless of if they have a window there or not, unless it's a god window, right? So yeah, you never, ever, ever, ever need vaulting perks at all with Spirit. Let me just skim through. I'll see if I can find any other ones that are like this. Yeah, Superior Anatomy, don't need this ever. Again, this is another perk that requires you to vault, which you will never be doing with Spirit. Same with this perk. Undone, again, really, really cool perk on killers like Wesker, but for Spirit, yeah, you're never really gonna be using these. They're pretty useless on her, unfortunately. And I think there's one more that is a Vecna perk, this one, Dark Arrogance. I'm gonna put this even below useless, I think, in do not use, because on top of the fact that all this perk does is give you a faster vault speed, it also increases your stun duration, which is absolutely fucking terrible. And a lot of the time, well, for playing Spirit specifically, your goal, if you don't have palette control at any tile, filler palette, whatever the case, your goal is to get the palette down, to get the survivor to drop the palette, because Spirit's power in 90% of cases allows you to guarantee the hit or the down on the survivor once that palette is dropped, since you can set up your husk to completely block it, right? So the survivor is either forced to vault into your husk, get stuck, get hit, play the palette that now they can't vault and get hit, or run away from the loop and try to connect it to something else. But if they don't have something immediately beside them, they're gonna get hit. So yeah, but my point is that with this longer stun duration and the fact that Spirit is typically trying to get the palette down, sometimes you end up getting stunned. It happens, right? And if that happens with Spirit and you get a really, really long stun, now what you've done to get that palette down is completely nullified, and the survivor will be able to take that distance with the long stun and make a different tile. Right, so this is just absolutely terrible. Never use this on Spirit. There's absolutely no reason why you would need to. Would completely put you at a disadvantage, so do not do that. Okay, Barbeque. This is a great perk on Spirit. Really, really good. I would argue that this is one of her top aura rating perks. Like I mentioned before, she doesn't have too many aura rating perks that are good for her, but Barbeque is one of them. You can always guarantee value with this, because when you hook the survivor, you can just wait an extra 2 seconds, 3 seconds, look around you, look at the aura rating that's given to you, or the lack of aura rating, to know who's closer to you, and then you can follow up with a phase, right? So yeah, very, very good perk on Spirit. Will always guarantee you to get value from this. So yes, highly recommend. Very, very good. Okay, moving on. Batteries included. Also a great perk on Spirit. Really, really good. I've done a couple videos using this perk, and the extra movement speed feels really, really nice. If the survivors are playing the way that they should be playing, more often than not, they're going to try to take chase into areas where gens are already completed, right? So their teammates can do gens that haven't yet been completed. So having that extra movement speed can guarantee you get the down as quick as possible, especially since you're in an area where you probably shouldn't be if the gens have already been completed, or not even necessarily shouldn't be, but you don't want to be hanging around there too long, right? So getting those downs as fast as possible in those areas is very important, and batteries included can help you do that. It also just does really, really well at helping you traverse the map faster, right? So if you're trying to get from point A to point B as fast as possible, batteries included helps you get there faster. So yeah, really, really good perk. I like it a lot. Super underrated, I think. Beast of Prey, completely useless. Really, really bad. I'm gonna go through this, I think, and I'll come back to you guys in a second. And I'm just gonna collect a lot of the perks that use the Undetectable status effect or the Obliviousness status effect, because they are completely useless on Spirit, and I will explain why in a second. Okay, I'm back. So in regards to undetectable perks, or perks that cause the Obliviousness status effect, these are the ones that I could come up with that are completely useless and go along with Beast of Prey. So Hysteria only causes the Obliviousness status effect on injured survivors when I think you hook a survivor. Insidious, as we know, causes the Undetectable status effect when you stand still, which, listen, okay, I understand that, yes, it can be this gimmicky, fun idea like, oh, well, you know, if you stand still with Insidious and your terror radius goes away, the survivor might think you're phasing. No, because you have directional audio with your phase as Spirit. So unless the survivor is a complete potato, they should be able to tell that you're not phasing, and that you have Insidious. So, or at least if you don't have Insidious, that you're not phasing, because they have that audio cue available to them. So that should never work. Septic Touch, I mean, do we even need to talk about it? Yeah, and I know some people are probably going to be upset at this one, but Plaything also does absolutely nothing for Spirit, much like the other perks that we've discussed, because although you could argue that yes, back in the day, before Spirit got her directional audio for her phasing, this could have been really fun. You could have gotten so many yoinks grabs off of gens and stuff while using this kind of perk, because survivors could not tell from which direction you were phasing from, but that's not the case anymore, unfortunately. So I feel like if you are going against survivors that just understand the basic mechanics of Spirit, or just have a headset on, they should always be able to tell if you are close to them in phase. So it doesn't matter if you don't have a terror radius or not, right? If you're oblivious, whatever the case. Same with unforeseen. The only thing I could say with unforeseen that might be slightly better is that it puts your terror radius on a generator. So if the survivor is hiding nearby, they might be hesitant for a little bit longer to come out of hiding to get back on the gen, but using this perk to try to catch off another survivor like across the map, if you're trying to sneak up on them without a terror radius, should not work ever. Because, and even if you're not phasing, Spirit has loud ass fucking breathing. This girl is, she's got some asthma, okay? They should always be able to hear her coming, whether you have a terror radius or not. So yeah, these perks unfortunately just do not do anything. And yeah, going back to Beast of Prey, because I think I just kind of skipped over this big boy. Yeah, I mean, even aside from the undetectable part of it, you should never be getting Bloodlust with Spirit, ever, right? Every time you tap your phase button, that ability to gain Bloodlust completely goes away. It resets every time. So the only time you should be getting Bloodlust with Spirit is if you're just walking the survivor down, you're not confident in your phase, or you're not using recharge for some reason, so it's taking forever to get your power back. That's like the only time you would ever get Bloodlust. And yeah, even then this is not worth it, because having the undetectable status in chase, the survivor is always going to know where you are anyway, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, okay, moving on. Bitter Murmur. Yeah, I really don't mind this perk, but it's kind of weak, unfortunately. I think given the information that it provides you, it's definitely one of the better general perks or non-teachable perks that you can use when you first download this game. You still have yet to unlock a lot of the characters and a lot of the perks that exist in this game, but unfortunately it gives you aura reading, right? Every time a generator gets complete and you get aura reading or information on the survivors, that's going to be basically taken away from you as a Spirit player, because if you're phasing, you're not going to be able to see that information that it's giving you, which basically leaves you two options. You can force yourself out of phase and potentially lose the hit or down that you would have gotten for the sake of getting information from this perk, which is not worth it, or you just don't get the information. So yeah, it's unfortunately kind of weak niche on Spirit specifically, but not completely useless. Okay, moving on to Blood Echo. I would probably put this at good with combo, because I feel like this is a relatively like niche kind of perk when it comes to the overall exhaustion type perks that are in this game. There's definitely a lot more stronger ones than Blood Echo, but I feel like if you combine this with like Sloppy Butcher, for example, it can be pretty decent. Yeah, keeping those survivors exhausted for an extra 30 seconds when you already have a whole bunch of survivors that are injured, which happens a lot of the time when you're running Sloppy, can make this perk kind of decent. So yeah, I would say that it can be good, again, with perks like Sloppy, but on its own, it's probably more down here. Yeah. All right, Bloodhound. Another perk that is completely useless. So Bloodhound, of course, makes blood brighter, makes blood last longer, but unfortunately for us Spirit players, we don't see blood in phase. So yeah, this perk isn't really going to do anything for you, and even aside from Spirit, it's a pretty niche, useless perk to begin with. So yeah, we're just gonna throw that bad boy there. Okay, moving on to Blood Warden. So don't get me wrong, guys. I love Blood Warden, okay? I love a good Blood Warden play. I feel like when you get Blood Warden value in this game, it is one of the most satisfying feelings you will ever feel in this game, but it's really niche. It's super, super niche. I think for Spirit specifically as well, if you're an experienced Spirit player, right? Because she's so strong in chase, you don't even need to be like a good killer player, but if you're a strong Spirit and you're confident in your tracking, it's going to be really hard for you to make it to endgame for probably about 90-95% of your games. So the likelihood of you making it to endgame is already pretty niche, but then the element of actually getting Blood Warden value is also incredibly niche. So yeah, for that reason, it kind of just is gonna sit down here. Yeah, love this perk, but in terms of strength, it's not the strongest. Okay, Brutal. I would say that this we can put this in good with combo, and I'm gonna put Fire Up with it as well. I'm gonna put Spirit Fury with it too. These three together, you could make an argument that could be decent on Spirit with a specific add-on. If you're using Kintsugi Teacup, which grants you your power back after you kick a pallet, that's when these perks are going to be really good. Because obviously, if you're using that add-on, you want to be able to kick pallets super fast. So using Brutal and Fire Up in that scenario is going to be really helpful for you. And having Spirit Fury as well isn't bad in that situation, since you're kicking the pallets anyway. You can get that extra value from breaking the pallet the next time you get stunned. So yeah, but that's about the extent of these. If you're not using Kintsugi Teacup, you should never be using these, really. I've said this so many times before, but Spirit is one of the only killers in this game that has a power that allows her to play around about 90% of pallets. So if you're not waiting for your recharge and you're not trying to get rid of resources in a specific area during downtime, or you're not at a god pallet, you should not be breaking pallets ever. So yeah, these perks really do nothing for you unless, again, you're using that specific add-on for whatever reason, because you want to be gimmicky or unique or whatever. Yeah. Yep. Okay, next we have Call of Brine. This perk kinda sucks, guys. Ever since the nerf, yeah, I wouldn't really recommend using Call of Brine, but you could make the argument that it's decent when paired with other gen regression perks. So for that reason, I'll put it in good with combo, I guess, but I wouldn't ever recommend using this perk alone. It's very weak on its own, unfortunately now. Corrupt, on the other hand, though, arguably or not arguably, one of the best killer perks that exists in this game. I would recommend this perk whether you're a new Spirit player, intermediate, or an expert Spirit player. You're always going to get value from this. Whether it's giving you that extra time at the beginning of a game to focus on your chase if you're not confident with your phases yet, whether it's being able to spread pressure and get multiple hits if survivors are grouped up and you see them at the beginning of the game before you get your first down, or whether it's getting the survivors to one area of the map and clump together around a specific number of gens because they can't work the ones on the other side, to allow for potential snowball very quickly in the game. Corrupt is so strong. I can't stress this enough. It is the sole reason why I was able to make it to almost 400 in my world record Spirit streak, because there were so many occasions where I had survivors clumped together on one side of the map that fucked up a little bit, gave me the extra leeway to get a few extra hits that led to a few extra downs, and suddenly everybody's on the floor and one person's on the hook and the game's over. And that is specifically because all the survivors were grouped up on one side trying to do the gens that were not blocked at the beginning of the game. Okay, moving on, we have Colorophobia. Oh, our beloved Terror Radius perks. Yeah. Unfortunately, much like the perks that cause the Oblivious or Undetectable status effects, perks that revolve around Terror Radius, much for the same reason, are also useless on Spirit. Like I stated before, if you don't have a Terror Radius or you have a small Terror Radius, it doesn't really matter on Spirit because they're going to be able to hear the directional audio anyway. So perks like Colorophobia, as well as a few that I'm going to add in a second, yeah. They just don't really do anything for Spirit. Again, revolving around Terror Radius doesn't do anything for us. So yeah, for that reason, they are unfortunately kind of useless against her. You could make the argument, I guess, for colorophobia that there are points throughout the match where you might be able to get value. Say if you're like out of phase and you're waiting for recharge and you're walking a survivor down and there happens to be a survivor close by trying to heal, but why you would ever run this perk on Spirit, I don't know. It's just not worth it. Of all the perks that exist in this game, they just don't work well on her. So just, you know, just don't do it. Just don't do it. If you wanna do a little skill check type build, play Doctor, not Spirit. Even if your Terror Radius is on someone else, like, yes, it's gonna maybe throw off the survivors that are around that gen or around that survivor, but people are gonna be able to hear your directional audio wherever you are on the map, regardless of if you have your Terror Radius there or not. So yeah, unfortunately, even though you could make the argument that maybe these are more weak than useless, like they're just, I don't know why you would ever run these. They're just not worth it. Yeah, unfortunately. Okay, moving on to Cruel Limits. Yeah, again, I think that this is going to be another weak niche perk that I'll throw here. Because yeah, it's just way too situational. Unfortunately, the only time you're gonna get value from this is if you happen to be chasing a survivor in an area where the windows block after a gen has popped. But even then, like we discussed with Bamboozle and all of the vaulting perks, Spirit plays around windows very, very well. So you don't necessarily need to have perks that block windows, because you can just play around them pretty easily and use those perk slots for something that's going to benefit you a lot more. So yeah, they're just kind of weak niche. I think you could make some gimmicky fun builds using this kind of perk. Same with like crowd control, but there's just definitely way better perks that you could use. So yeah, I'm going to put crowd control with this as well. Okay, moving on, we have Darkness Revealed. This is another niche perk, I think, even though Spirit doesn't utilize it a lot of aura perks well, and this is one that she technically can use. It's just way too niche and map dependent, unfortunately. Like, the value you're going to get with this on Midwich, for example, is going to be way more than you would ever get on an open map like Thompson House, for example, where there's just nothing in the middle at all in terms of locker spawns. So yeah, it's just way too situational, way too map dependent, and it requires you to open a locker in order to get maybe a little bit of value from it. There's just no reason why you should ever run this over like Barbeque, for example. So yeah. Moving on, we have Deadlock. Yeah, this is pretty good. Definitely, at least in my opinion, one of the weaker gen slowdown perks that you can run, especially since if you go against good survivors, they're going to be able to counter this pretty well by just 99ing another gen, which is just gen pressure waiting to be popped later on. So yeah, it's not the best, but it's still gen slowdown, right? It's still a good perk. So we'll put it in great. That's fine. Dead Man Switch. This is an excellent perk. Again, if you're going against good survivors, you will encounter situations where the survivors will be able to counter this perk a little bit, especially in the 4v1, where they'll have somebody go out and just tap a generator that hasn't been worked on to waste the gen block on that gen instead of a generator that is high progressed. But in the 3v1, this perk is incredibly strong. If you have 3 survivors left in the game, chances are they're not going to have the time or the manpower to send someone out to do that. And if you only have 3 or 4 generators remaining, their options of gens that they can block are pretty scarce. So yeah, the pressure that you're going to get from this perk in a 3v1 specifically is really, really good. So yeah, again, one of the weaker options for gen regression, I think, but definitely a good perk for the 3v1 specifically. You will get a lot of value from it if you're not going against really, really experienced survivors. Okay, Deathbound. Yeah, another weak niche perk. It's not completely useless because you will get value from it with the information that it will give you when you get that proc that the survivors have healed near you. But at that point, like, it doesn't really matter. Chances are you're probably going to have an idea of where they've healed anyway, and you're not really going to be able to follow up on it if they're healing in the proper spots. So it's not really going to do too much for you, but it's still info, you know? It's not absolutely dog shit, so we'll just throw it there. Deerstalker. I don't really know where I would throw this. I'm leaning weak, but I think I might just stick it in decent, because in the scenario that you are doing a slug build or you are someone that is very slug heavy, Deerstalker will actually do a lot for you in terms of time saving and being able to keep track of your slugs so that you know where survivors are going to be rotating to pick up if they've been on the floor for a long time, or if you're doing like a world record match speed run or whatever, trying to do like the fastest game with Spirit. Deerstalker is almost crucial in that scenario so that you can pick up the survivors and get them on the hook after you've slugged them as fast as humanly possible to get whatever the world record is. So yeah, it's decent. It's definitely not strong, but yeah, it's okay. It's fine. We'll just put it there. Discordance. This perk is great. This is definitely one of Spirit's best information perks, I think. I used to use this perk a lot, especially when I was learning her, and it's probably one of the most consistent information perks you can use on her, since you will always get value from it. It's not aura reading, so you will always see whether it procs or not, just based off of the highlighter that it'll put over the generators. Yeah, and it provides good information. If it procs, you know that there's at least 2 survivors on the gen, and if it doesn't proc, then you know that the survivors either aren't on gens or that they're split up, which is good information. All right, Dissolution. Chat, I want this to be so good. I really do. But it's just not, unfortunately, especially considering, okay, for Spirit specifically, the survivor needs to be in your tear radius when they vault the pallet for it to break. And since Spirit loses her tear radius after phasing for a few seconds, unless they vault the pallet immediately as you start phasing or when you're walking them down, you're not going to get value from this, unfortunately. And even then, like, a lot of the time, if the survivor is vaulting a pallet, it's them vaulting into your husk if you've set up your husk properly, which would result in you getting the hit anyway. So the most that this would be doing for you is just breaking the pallet that you'd probably break anyway after getting the down or something. But yeah, it's just not very good on Spirit, unfortunately. All right, Dominance. This perk is fucking amazing, but unfortunately it needs other perks in order for it to be amazing. I recently did a video on the most miserable Spirit hex build, and I used Dominance in it, and it was really good. I really love this perk. But yeah, unfortunately, obviously it needs other hexes for it to be able to do anything. And this is the same case for Pentimento. There it is. Yeah. Both really strong perks. Really good for hex totem builds, but yes, they need other hexes in order for them to do anything. Same with Undying, actually. Yes. Yep. All very strong, but need hex totems to go along with them for them to be anything. Okay, moving on, we have Dragon Script. Yeah, this perk is also really good on Spirit. I would say that this is excellent. Spirit, I think, is one of the best killers for this perk because you can activate the gen with it, leave, and then if the survivor gets exposed by touching the gen, you can get back to the gen very quickly if you haven't gone all the way across the map, which, I mean, ideally, if you're putting Dragon Script on a gen, you're not going to be traversing all the way across the map. So yeah, you'll be able to get value out of this very consistently. And if you're pairing it with other perks like Eruption, Pop, other gen perks that are going to further incentivize the survivor to want to get back on the gen rather quickly. Yeah, you will get really, really good value from this, and getting a down beside a gen that is high progress can be very game changing. So very, very good perk for Spirit. Okay, next we have Dying Light. This is decent, I guess. I would kind of put this perk in the same category as Thanatophobia or Thanatophobia, however you pronounce it. Here she is. Yeah, they're both kind of niche, but they still provide decent slowdown, especially since with Spirit you're going to be able to rack up those stacks rather quickly, and with Thanat, chances are you're going to be in scenarios where multiple people are injured, especially if you're running a perk like Sloppy Butcher. So yeah, they're definitely on the weaker side, but they're not useless by any means. And I think if anyone can use them, Spirit is definitely up there. But yeah, definitely better options though, for sure. All right, Enduring. Absolutely phenomenal perk. One of my favorite perks to use on Spirit. Yeah, really, really good. Even without using other perks to go along with this, like Hubris, or the add-on that gives you your power back when you get stunned by a pallet, which is Uchiwa. This perk is just really, really good, because I think I mentioned this earlier, but Spirit's goal a lot of the time in Chase is to get the pallet down, because she can then set up her phase, or her husk rather, at the pallet to block it and guarantee the hit like 99% of the time. So Enduring just guarantees that you're able to do that every single time, since you can just walk through the pallets, right? So if the survivor decides to greed the pallet, you get the hit anyway, but if they don't and they stun you, you can instantly set up your husk where you need to get the hit. And it, yeah, very, very good. I love this perk. Super, super good. Okay, Eruption, another excellent perk for Spirit. This is probably, aside from Pain Resonance, which I'll throw that gamer up there as well. Here it is. Probably the strongest gen regression perks that you could use in this game for Spirit. Pain Resonance, obviously, very explicitly gives you that gen regression without needing to really do anything. All you have to do is hook them on the Scourge Hook and you get that value. And with Eruption, having this perk in a 3v1 situation, or if you're trying to hold down a 3-gen or a 4-gen, this is so good for any S tier killer, really, and Spirit's included in that. You could have this procced on multiple gens, and then when you get your next down, which Spirit does very, very quickly, given how efficient she can be at getting those quick hits and quick downs, you can have Eruption proc so many times when you needed to proc and save you so much gen time. So yeah, very, very good perks. Super good. If you're looking for the strongest gen regression perks to run on Spirit, these two are definitely it for you. Okay, the next perk that we have is Forced Hesitation. This perk is great. This is really, really good. I don't know if I would put it in excellent, because it's kind of situational, but yeah, this is really, really good. If you have a group of altruistic survivors, or just survivors that are caught out of position and happen to be in the area where a survivor has just gone down, having that hindered on them is super good for snowball potential, especially if you pair this with Infectious Fright, for example. So you then have info on exactly where those survivors are around the down survivor. You can get those extra hits or extra downs if they're injured really, really easily with Spirit's mobility. So yeah, super good perk on her. But I'm gonna put it in great just because it is situational to those survivors fucking up a little bit and being around the survivor that has just gone down. Okay, next is Forced Penance, the other forced. So yeah, this is a pretty good perk too. I'm gonna put it in decent, maybe, just because I'm kind of leaning great, but my issue is that I feel like this is just a worse version of Sloppy Butcher. Sloppy is absolutely amazing. Really good on Spirit, because you get those hits so consistently. You can apply Sloppy over and over again, and it applies when the survivor gets downed as well, so they'll have it lingering when they get off the hook most likely too. Yeah, and just its ability to slow down healing, to slow down gen time because they have to spend more time healing and off gens. It's so consistently good on Spirit. And I feel like Force Penance is just trying really, really hard to be sloppy in the sense that it has the same potential for extra time wasted, you know, keeping survivors injured in the same way because it makes them broken for 80 seconds, which is a long time. It's a really long time, but very rarely are you going to find yourself in situations where survivors are taking hits for each other, or at least really they shouldn't be. They really, really shouldn't be, because giving the Spirit extra people injured is not good for the survivors at all. So yeah, if the survivors are playing smart in any sort of way, they should not be taking hits for each other. So you're gonna find yourself in very limited scenarios where you get value from this perk, unfortunately. But when you do get value from it, it's very, very good, because 80 seconds on a broken survivor is a very long time. So yeah, I'm gonna put it in decent because it's definitely good, but it's situational, unfortunately. Hey, next perk. Oh, Forever Entwined. My beloved, definitely going in great. But yeah, this perk very, very quickly when it came out became one of my favorites to use on Spirit, just for how satisfying it was. God, it's so addicting. It's definitely not like the strongest type of perk. If you want something that's going to help you hook survivors faster, Agitation is definitely your girl for that. But Forever Entwined is still incredibly fun to use, very satisfying to use, for picking up survivors super fast and hooking them fast. And using it together with Agitation makes it even stronger. So yeah, very, very good perk. Not as strong as Agi, but insanely feel good to use. Okay, Franklin's. This perk is pretty decent. I think this perk gets memed on a lot as like, oh, you're such a shitty killer for bringing Franklin's, blah blah blah. But in the current meta that we're in, I can't tell you how many games I get where I get 4 medkits, or, you know, 2 medkits and 2 toolboxes, or whatever the case. So having Franklin's and being the killer that we are and able to get those very quick succession hits in multiples at the beginning of a game can be very, very useful for denying the game-changing use of items like that. So yeah, it's definitely not strong, but it's decent. So we'll just hang him here. Yep. Friends Till the End. Great perk on Spirit. I think this is a pretty, like, not even pretty, like a very niche perk on most or majority of killers, but Spirit is one of the few that can capitalize on Friends Till the End the most, if not the only killer that can do so, because she's the only S tier killer that only uses basic attacks, meaning that it doesn't matter whether she's walking a survivor down or coming right out of phase, her attacks are always seen as an M1, a basic attack, rather than an M2 like Blight or Nurse or Billy with his chainsaw, right? So that's why exposed perks on Spirit are so good, because she can always use them. She can always get those exposed downs using her power, and Friends Till the End is no exception to that. So even though the exposed only lasts 20 seconds, it's not too long. If the survivor is not in Narnia and across the entirety of the map, more often than not, Spirit will be able to get the exposed down off of this, since she has such a strong chase power and can catch up to the survivor very quickly. So yeah, very, very good perk on her specifically. Furtive Chase. I am absolutely in love with this perk, but unfortunately it does need Game Afoot for it to be as strong as it is. But yeah, so for those of you who don't know, Game Afoot changes your obsession a lot. So what you'll find a lot of the time is you'll chase a survivor, you injure them or you down them, they become your obsession, and then you hook them, and with Furtive Chase, when you hook the obsession, you then get 10% haste for, I think, 17 or 18 seconds. It's a long time. 18 seconds, yes. So this combination is super, super fun, super lethal on Spirit, but you need both of these perks in order for it to be as strong as it is. So that's why they are here. Okay, Gearhead. This perk is decent. It's pretty good. Unfortunately, much like Nurse's Calling and Bitter Murmur, It's kind of niche in the sense that you are going to lose out on getting value from it a lot of the time, since that aura reading will proc while you're in phase. But the info that you get from it is good when you're not in phase and you're just kind of walking around and looking for survivors. Yeah, it's good. It's definitely good info. So it's not great, but it's definitely decent. I'm very, very happy with the change that they made to it. Okay, genetic limits. So this is where we get into our good exhaustion perks, and I can put Languid Touch with this as well. So both of these perks are excellent on Spirit. She definitely by far utilizes them the best out of all killers in the game, since they help in assisting getting rid of Iron Will. They are fairly different though from each other. So genetic limits is good specifically for denying Iron Will, in the sense that when you injure the survivor, you will deny that Iron Will usage for the whole duration of that chase, as long as you are able to hit your phases and not allow the survivor to walk off their exhaustion. It's very, very good for that scenario specifically. Languid Touch, on the other hand, is a little bit more inconsistent in terms of denying Iron Will, since it requires the survivor to trigger a crow nearby in order for it to activate, but it's very good still. And on top of that, it allows you to deny exhaustion use as well. So you're chasing a survivor and they go to use Lithe, Sprint Burst, Dead Hard, whatever the case, they trigger a bird nearby, or a crow rather, and all of a sudden they can't use their exhaustion anymore. So yeah, it's very, very good for that scenario as well, which definitely puts it at the same level as genetic limits. Okay, Grim Embrace. This is another insanely strong gen perk on Spirit. Yeah, really, really good. Especially when paired with perks like Pain Resonance. Super lethal on Spirit. Not really much more to be said about that, since you'll be spreading your hooks most likely anyway with the use of Pain Res, since you have to hook each individual survivor in order to get value from it. Pairing it with Grim Embrace is super lethal as well, so that you can get the same value from it too. Definitely would recommend if you're looking for strong gen perks on Spirit as well. Even by itself though, even without Pain Res, like this on its own is still a very, very strong perk. Blood Favor. Okay. For those of you who know, Blood Favor is one of my favorite perks to use on Spirit. So yeah, it's definitely going in excellent. Really, really good perk. Spirit already has one of, like we've talked about, one of the strongest 1v1 powers in the game. Taking away the survivor's ability to use pallets, like I don't even need to say anything, right? It's just insanely strong. Really, really good. It is a hex perk, so of course you're kind of relying on the fact that you're able to keep the totem up, but if you are, it definitely results in very, very quick chases all of the time, especially considering that if you hit the survivor and have your recharge back relatively soon, you will be able to catch up to the survivor and get the down before they make it out of the Blood Favor radius, meaning that chances are they're not going to be able to make or use any resources at all if you have your power back immediately or soon and are using add-ons like movement speed. Yeah, really, really lethal on Spirit. Probably one of her best perks, to be honest. So yeah, definitely going in excellent. Okay, Devour. Another excellent hex perk on Spirit. Really, really good. Again, it is a hex perk, so you're relying on your ability to be able to keep the totem up. But if Devour does survive, and you get to a point in the game where the survivors are having to look for it, chances are the game is probably already going to be over soon. Spirit's snowballed potential is already so incredibly high, so if everyone is exposed or moriable, yeah, the game is just basically over. So yeah, it's super, super good on Spirit. Okay, next we have Face the Darkness. I'm a really big fan of this perk. It definitely needs to be comboed with other perks though. I don't really think it's too strong on its own, but if you're running it in a hex build, say with like Blood Favor, Devour, and we can put Thrill here as well, where you're really trying to make sure that the survivors do not cleanse your totems, these two perks are so good for that. especially considering, remember, Spirit loses her terror radius when she's phasing, so you could get Face the Darkness to proc on survivors that are right in front of you where they're screaming, and the game doesn't register that they're in front of you because you don't have a terror radius in phase. So it's really, really good at being able to allow you to pressure survivors off of your totems. And if you have slower cleanse speed due to another perk, yeah, it can make for some very, very annoyingly fun builds with Spirit. Okay, next we have Haunted Ground, another excellent hex totem for Spirit. I can't tell you how many games I've had where Haunted Ground has single-handedly snowballed the game and ended it almost immediately. Like, say for example, you have somebody on hook, you're chasing a survivor, Haunted Ground procs, that survivor goes down. Now the other two survivors have to come off of their gens, have to rotate, and they still have however many seconds where they're exposed and can't really do anything, which could result in the person on hook going second or dying depending on how long they've been on hook, or if one of the two survivors gets caught out and messes up, shows their positioning, that could lead to another down. Yeah, it's just very, very good. Huge snowball potential and really, really good in hex builds for Spirit. Speaking of hex perks though, we have Huntress Lullaby. This unfortunately isn't a very strong hex perk on Spirit. I feel like if you're going against survivors that have decent experience in the game, they should be able to hit their skill checks whether they get the prompt for it or not. It might throw them off maybe the first time, but it shouldn't really after that. So for that reason, yeah, it is just kind of a really niche perk. Noed. Another really, really excellent perk for Spirit. Even though we discussed before how she doesn't always get to endgame, probably 9 out of 10 of your games you're not going to be getting to endgame anyway. This is a really, really good cushion perk for when you're still learning Spirit. Yeah, just to give you that extra leeway, that extra time during the game for you to practice your phasing and be okay with messing up a little bit, because you're going to mess up. Spirit's power is very, very difficult to deal with at the very beginning, so having perks like Noed can really help you just give yourself that extra time, that extra leeway. Okay, Nothing But Misery. This is a great perk. Really, really good on Spirit. I had a lot of fun with this in recent builds that I did with this testing, and yeah, I would definitely recommend it on Spirit. Having that hindered on the survivors is so lethal, because you get that initial hit, they're hindered, and with the power that Spirit has where she's already able to catch up to them so fast, the survivors are hindered, they're not getting anywhere. Like they will not make the resources that they typically would be able to make, and you'll just get that down all the more quickly. The only reason why I'm not putting it in excellent along with some of these other perks like Blood Favor is because it does take a while for it to activate. You need to get 8 stacks before Misery can activate, so you're not really going to be using this perk for a lot of the beginning of your game, and it's still a hex perk, right? So there is the chance that you could spend all that time getting your stacks just for it to get cleansed immediately, right? So yeah, for that reason, I'm not putting it in excellent, but it is still a phenomenal perk on Spirit and really, really lethal with other perks like Blood Favor. Okay, next we have Retribution. So this is another perk. I guess I could have put this with like Dominance, Pentimento, and Undying, because there's no reason for the survivors to cleanse this if you don't have other hex totems, especially since the game immediately tells them that they're cleansing Retribution as soon as they touch the hex totem. But it can be kind of fun to use with other hex perks. Having that information of knowing where everyone is on the map when it's cleansed can be really strong and really game changing for Spirit. And if you're using other perks that are really strong like Devour, Blood Favor, etc., that the survivors have to go out and look for and cleanse, there's a good chance that they are going to run into Retribution as well in the attempt to get rid of those other perks. Okay, Ruin. Yeah, last but not least, Spirit, one of Spirit's best hex perks. Really, really good for gen regression. Again, it is a hex perk, so you have to be able to keep it alive and hope that your totem is in a good place. But other than that, if you can keep this perk alive, this is insanely good on Spirit. Really, really strong. Forces the survivors into a position where they either have to sit on gens injured and try to prevent that regression from happening with Ruin, free regression, since you don't have to kick it at all, or they have to waste time healing while that gen is regressing for free. So you're getting value from it all the time, always with Spirit, as long as it's alive. Okay, third seal. Yeah, this is just kind of a niche perk, unfortunately. I think you could do some fun little builds with this, but it's just kind of map dependent, unfortunately, because even if, you know, you have all 4 stacks, the survivors can't see where the other survivor is hooked. If you're on a really open map, which like a lot of maps are, you'll be able to see the survivor where they're hooked anyway, so it doesn't really matter that their aura is hidden. The only time you're really ever getting value from this is on like indoor maps like RPD, Hawkins, etc. And even then, like, they can still see where the initial hook point was, like when that initial bubble shows up. So it kind of relies on the fact that the survivors weren't paying attention. 2 can play. This is actually like a pretty decent perk. I think it does rely on being in combination with other hex perks. I did a recent video on it where I used 2 can play, Enduring, the new Knockout, and Hubris, and it was really, really fun. And I think in a specific build like that, where you're revolving around getting stunned, it can be really fun. But otherwise, it's pretty niche by itself. It's pretty bad on its own. Especially since it only lasts, I think, for 1.5 seconds. So if you have normal stun time, they're basically unblinded by the time you recover from your stun. So you kind of need perks like Enduring with it. Wretched Fate. Okay, I lied. This Ruin was not the last really good hex perk. I totally forgot about this one. Wretched Fate is excellent. Really, really good. Wastes a lot of time once it activates after the first gen has procced. As long as you're not chasing the obsession, the survivor that has this perk activated on it, your team is wasting so much time having to go out and look for this perk, and being, you know, the killer, and knowing that the survivor is going to be actively looking for this totem. If the totem's in a good place, you can also defend it pretty well. Get that extra tag, that extra down on the survivor if they're caught out of position, and can be super, super lethal in hex builds. So yeah, definitely would recommend. Very, very good perk. Hoarder. Okay, this perk, yeah, it's just kind of not very good, unfortunately, chat. I wouldn't even say it's weak, it's just completely useless. It's just, yeah, doesn't really do anything for you. I think you could put like Human Greed with this as well. The perks that revolve around chests, they're just not even super niche. Like, you're just not really ever gonna get value out of these, or the value that you get is like so minuscule it doesn't even really matter. So yeah, can be like kind of fun, I guess, maybe in like gimmicky builds, but you're probably going to be playing a lot of games before you get value out of them. So yeah. Okay, next we have Hubris. Really, really good perk. Super good on Spirit. I mentioned it before when I talked about the 2 can play build that I did, but even on its own, even without Enduring, like, this is still a good perk. I wouldn't put it in excellent because it's definitely a lot weaker on its own, but it's really strong. Again, Spirit's really, really good at getting those exposed downs and utilizing these exposed type perks, and Hubris is definitely no exception. It can throw survivors off very easily, and if they're not prepared for it and you set up your husk correctly, like, you are getting those exposed downs very, very, very frequently, especially if you're using it with Enduring. So yeah, for that reason, it is definitely a great perk. Would recommend. Can use it on its own, but I would recommend using it with Enduring at least. just to make it even more lethal. Okay, next we have I'm All Ears. Yeah, kind of just a niche perk on Spirit, which sucks because I really like this perk on other killers, but I mean, the bottom line is like the aura reading that you're getting from it after Survivor vaults just isn't really important for Spirit, because you're going to be phasing to where they vaulted anyway and just listening for their location, not able to see the aura reading regardless. So like, yeah, it's just not good on her, unfortunately. And Infectious Fright. So unlike I'm All Ears, this is an insanely good perk on Spirit. Really, really good info, really good for snowball potential if for some reason you have a bunch of survivors that are in your vicinity and a couple of them are injured. This perk is really good when you pair it with Forced Hesitation, but it's very good on its own as well. Iron Grasp. Okay, yeah, this isn't completely useless, but it's pretty weak. I feel like if you're using this perk for the sake of trying to carry survivors farther, just use Agitation, man. I don't know why you would ever use Iron Grasp over Agitation. And like even in backpack builds, you don't even really need this. Like you could just use Agitation, Mad Grit, and be fine and be set. Like you can use this if you want, I guess, but it's just so niche. It's just not necessary, and it's so bad on its own. Iron Maiden. Not really much else to be said. I don't know why you would ever get value from this perk on Spirit unless the survivor is just completely memeing and is hiding in lockers for some reason. Yeah, it's just, yeah, don't use this. All right, Knockout. So this is a really good perk. I love this a lot. I will say though, I do think you kind of need to use Enduring with this, just because it does rely on you being able to force the survivor to drop the pallet. So having Enduring is kind of crucial so that you can just kind of walk through those pallets, force it down, and then get the knockout value. Because otherwise then you kind of run the risk of getting stunned, and then it doesn't really matter that the survivor is hindered because they can still make a lot of distance with the stun time that you're going to have base kit. So yeah, it's kind of necessary, I think, to have Enduring with this, but otherwise really good perk for Spirit. If there's anybody that's going to be able to capitalize on utilizing the hinder that it applies to survivors, Spirit is definitely on that list. Okay, next we have Lethal Pursuer, another excellent perk on Spirit. I would put this up with Barbeque. It's definitely one of her best aura reading perks. You could even argue that this is excellent. Yeah, because it, much like Corrupt, like it's very good for your early game. You're able to identify where all the survivors are, and if you're a newer player, it also is very helpful in terms of allowing you to identify those spawn points and get used to them. But it's also a really good perk for other perks like Barbeque to extend that aura reading, right? It's very good. Okay, next we have Leverage, another really great perk. Not as good as Sloppy, in my opinion, but it wastes so much time for the survivors because either that person just has to stay injured, which is not a good idea against Spirit, especially if you're vulnerable coming off of Hook. Number two, you actually sit there and waste time healing the person, which is such a big time waste. Or the survivor has to run around the map and search for somebody else to heal them, and then they get off of their gen, or they have to rotate, or whatever the case. So yeah, it's very good. I wouldn't put it in excellent, but it's definitely a good time waster. Lightborn. Do not use this perk. Yeah, this might be a bit of a hot take, but I really feel like this is just a huge waste of a perk slot if you use this. Like in 9 times out of 10, you can very simply deny flashlight saves by just facing the correct way against a wall or against an area that you know the survivors are not going to be set up for a save on. And aside from that, and I think probably the biggest issue that I have with this perk is that if you have very altruistic survivors that are constantly going for saves, this completely scares them away, right? And that's good for you as a spirit player. If you have very altruistic survivors, you can capitalize on those mistakes by catching them out of position, giving yourself extra hits, extra downs, all in the same area as your original slug. And that's really, really good for you. Spirit is one of the killers that can capitalize on altruistic survivors the most. So if you have Lightborn and they see that you have Lightborn, they're not going to go for saves anymore and they're going to just sit on gens, which is not the best alternative, right? So don't use this perk. Please just learn how to play around flashlight saves. This is definitely not worth a perk slot at all, and actually hinders you if you happen to go against survivors that are going for saves and being funny instead of just sitting on gens. Okay, next we have machine learning. I'm a very big fan of this perk. I think that this can be really fun in gen kick builds or just on its own, because more often than not, you're not going to be able to defend every gen, right? You're not going to 4k5 every game. So there are gens that are going to be popped. And if you can apply this on a gen that's really far across the map that you know you're not going to be able to defend, the movement speed that you get from this perk is really insane. 10% haste for 45 seconds. 45 seconds. That is a long time, and really, really detrimental for whatever poor survivor that happens to cross your path within that time. So yeah, really, really good perk on her. I like this a lot. Mad Grit. Another niche perk, kind of down with Iron Grasp. I feel like survivors are massively throwing if they're giving you a lot of hit takes for somebody that's being hooked, because more survivors injured is not good news for them, especially considering more often than not, at least in my experience, the survivors will give those hits. You'll still be able to hook the survivor and then instantly follow up on the survivor that just took that hit, and now you have a down near your hook. So yeah, there's just no real need to use this perk, because if the survivors are smart at all, they shouldn't really be taking hits anyway. So yeah. Okay, next we have Make Your Choice. This perk is decent. It's kind of niche, but I feel like if there is a killer in the game that is going to be able to utilize this perk, it's definitely Spirit. Because yeah, you can get back to hooks very, very quickly. And if you use this with a perk like Floods of Rage, for example, and you have org reading on the survivor that has just unhooked, like you're going to be able to get that exposed down 90% of the time. And can be also really good when using perks like Devour Hope, for example, because you leave that hook, get your stack, go back, get the expose down, and just advance your path to getting those 3 tokens on Devour Hope. So yeah, kind of a niche perk, but not bad on Spirit. Not at all. Okay, next we have Merciless Storm. Yeah, so I don't know, man. Unfortunately, I think that this perk is just kind of niche. Like it's okay. I think we could put it in decent, because like if you do get value from it, that gen block time is really helpful for you. But I feel like if you go against survivors that just are able to hit your skill checks, which is most of survivors, like you're not really gonna get good value from this. The only reason why I can argue like putting it here too is because Spirit's very good at obviously going to pressure those gens that she knows are very high progress, so you can almost force value on this if you need to, especially if it's in an area where you're very much trying to defend those gens. So yeah, I think on Spirit specifically, you can argue that this is a decent perk that you can get value from, but I think on most other killers, it's probably more on the weak niche side. Fearmonger. Another decent perk. I like this a lot. This perk can be really good at denying like sprint bursts, so that survivors can't just immediately sprint burst away from a gen if they've been sitting on it up until you walk or phase up to them. And because Spirit is so fast and she's able to catch them off guard, more often than not, they're not going to be able to walk off their exhaustion before you reach them. So yeah, can be really good on her. Okay, moving on to Nemesis. I think that this is definitely another one of those perks that is super weak, super niche, unfortunately. For those of you who don't know, Nemesis is really only good for changing your obsession, but you have to be stunned by the survivor in order for the obsession to be changed. And yeah, it's just not very good. I feel like the only time you're really using like an obsession changing build is either with Furtive Chase, which we already established works so much better with Game of Foot, or if you're doing like a gimmicky Rancor build where you're trying to change the obsession a bunch of times in endgame, so you can get multiple people moried. But other than that, yeah, it's just very niche for those situations, and otherwise, yeah, it's not very useful for Spirit. Which, speaking of Rancor, I feel like you can put Rancor in about the same category. Maybe decent, just because of the information that it gives you throughout the match. Since every time a gen pops, you'll see information for where survivors are. But the Mori aspect of Rancor is, yeah, super niche. Very, very rarely are you going to be getting the Mori unless the survivor massively fucks up and you happen to be chasing them as you enter endgame. If you're not already chasing them and they're smart, they'll just hide and escape and you won't ever find them. And the other thing is like we established earlier, Spirit doesn't really do well with endgame builds. She's an S tier killer, so very, very rarely are you going to make it to endgame if you're confident in your tracking abilities, phases, etc. So yeah, Rancor is just kind of niche, kind of weak. But for the info aspect of it, I'll put it in decent. Okay, moving on to No Quarter. Yeah, so this is definitely a very weak niche perk. I kind of like the idea of this perk with like an anti-heal build, which I've done in the past, but the amount of value you're actually going to get from this is very slim to none. It requires the survivor, obviously, much like Merciless Storm, to fuck up their heal, and I think out of like 20 to 30 games that I played with this perk, I got it to proc like twice, maybe 3 times, and the broken status effect is only 30 seconds. It's not even really that long, so yeah, it's just not really worth a perk slot. And next we have No Way Out. This is an excellent perk, really good. I would put this up with NOED 100%. It's very, very good endgame perk, very strong, super useful, especially if you're still learning Spirit or getting a handle on your confidence in your phases, just to give you that extra time in endgame to really just focus on your chases and draw the game out as long as possible as you're practicing. Yeah, it can just be like a good cushion for you if you're not confident that you can prevent all your gens from popping, and giving you a little bit extra time before the survivors just open the gates and escape. So yeah, really good. Also nicely paired with NOED, but definitely just as strong on its own. Okay, now we have Nowhere to Hide, also an insanely strong perk on Spirit. I mentioned this before about how Spirit only has a few aura reading perks that are very good on her, and Nowhere to Hide is arguably the best, meaning that I am arguing that it is her best. Super good information, saves you so much time if you're by a generator and you know that a survivor is stealthing around it somewhere waiting for you to leave, but you can't actually find them, or you're wasting too much time trying to look for them. Nowhere to Hide just saves that time for you instantly. So good. Really good information. And because we're a Spirit and we have the chase power that we do, even if the survivor is hiding some distance away, you will 9 times out of 10 be able to catch them off guard and get that hitter down beside the progress gen, which can be so huge. So yeah, really good. Also fits well with other gen regression perks that involve kicking gens, right? Like Pop, Eruption. So if you're kicking the gen anyway, to apply those perks, having Nowhere to Hide as well can be super beneficial for a build like that. Okay, Oppression. I mean, yeah, I think Oppression's good. It's definitely in a much better place than I think it was in the past. I like what they did with the buff, and I think it slept on quite a bit, actually. I would say that, you know, much like Overcharge, which we also have here, they definitely work better, I think, with builds that have other gen kicking perks on them. So you're applying not only Overcharge, not only Oppression, but other perks as well. But they stand on their own fine. Yeah. I would say maybe Overcharge is more kind of like on Call of Brine level. I think Overcharge relies a little bit more on having other perks along with it, whereas I think Oppression is okay to stand on its own, to be honest. Yeah. I like this. I'll put them like this. Yeah, so Oppression and Great can stand on its own. Definitely in a much better place than it used to be, but not excellent. And Overcharge, definitely a lot stronger when paired with other generation perks, specifically that involve kicking gens. Can stand on its own, but isn't the strongest. Yeah. I feel like if you go against decent survivors, they should be able to hit the skill check almost every single time. So the only really benefit that you get from this perk is the generation aspect of it, which isn't great anymore. So yeah. Play with your food. Unfortunately, I think that this perk is really weak on Spirit. I've gotten a lot of questions about how I feel about this perk. And unfortunately, I think just because of how quick of a succession you get hit after hit with Spirit, if you gain a stack, 2 stacks, you're gonna lose it instantly. Because Spirit's strength is her ability to get very quick hits, very quick downs. She doesn't spend a whole lot of time chasing because her chases are typically relatively fast, so you're not holding that haste for a very long time. And it only applies to the obsession, right? So the only time you're getting value from this is if you happen to be chasing the obsession and you get a stack when you lose chase going into phase, and then you have that haste for a little bit of time till you hit them again, but you're never getting more than like 1 stack of this, and it's only when you're chasing the obsession, really. So yeah, it's just kind of weak. Unfortunately, there's definitely better haste perks out there for her. Pop goes the Weasel. Oh, our boy Pop. They did Pop really dirty. This perk used to be so good, and I just feel like it's been completely gutted. I don't really see any time where you would want to use this like on its own now. Like, unless the gen you're kicking is quite literally about to pop, you're not getting value really out of this perk. I can see the argument to use this perk with Eruption, so that when the next survivor gets downed, it also gets erupted. Yeah, that's the only argument that I can make for it. I wouldn't really run this on its own, though. There's definitely stronger generation perks out there now. Yeah, so moving forward, Predator. This is completely useless, unfortunately. I really like the change that they made to it. It's definitely an improvement from what it was before, and it's really strong on killers like Nurse, right, where you're able to break chase with survivors relatively easily and get that aura reading value. But unfortunately, when you're breaking chase with the survivor in chase with Spirit, it's when you're going into phase, and you can't see aura reading when you're in phase, so Predator does absolutely nothing for you, really. Alright, Rapid Brutality. Excellent. Really good perk on Spirit. One of my absolute favorite, and I'll put Save the Best for last up there as well, because I feel like you can run either of these on their own. They're both incredibly strong on Spirit individually, but together they're also incredibly strong. Any kind of chase perk on Spirit is just absolutely phenomenal. I did a build a while ago that was Rapid Brutality, Save the Best for last, Blood Favor, and Undying. So every time you hit a survivor, not only do you recover really fast, get extra movement speed, and all of the pallets in the vicinity are blocked. But yeah, the survivor just instantly dies. Like, what are they supposed to do in that scenario? If you use Rapid Brutality, or if you use Save the Best for last, that little bit of movement speed or that little bit of recovery speed can be the difference in them making that resource or not. Will always get you value, unless for some reason you're deciding to tunnel the obsession. for save the best for last. But yeah, really, really good perks. Definitely recommend. Okay, remember me. I think we could put this in good with combo, I suppose. And I would put this perk with it as well. I think they're decent when you pair them with perks like No Way Out or Noed. You know, having those really, really short chases in endgame with all of the pallets and the windows being blocked to snowball even faster in the time that No Way Out is giving you. And then Remember Me, of course, to make the gates take even longer after they've been unblocked. Can make for some super, super fun endgame builds, but like I mentioned before, endgame builds are already pretty niche on Spirit, and running these on their own isn't really gonna do much for you at all. So yeah, they can be good with other perks, but otherwise very niche, very weak on their own. So yeah, we will stick these here. Flits of Rage. Oh, this one's a little bit tough. Because I think, like, you could make the argument that this is a decent perk, but it's also incredibly niche for the same reason that Nurse's Calling is incredibly niche on Spirit, is that you just can't guarantee that you're going to get the value you want out of this perk, because a survivor could get unhooked giving you the aura reading when you're phasing on top of another survivor, right? So you, again, have to choose between either coming out of phase to get that value and risk losing that hit or that down that you're trying to get, or you just don't get the value from it at all. So I just feel like there are other aura reading perks, other Scourge hooks that are definitely more lethal on Spirit than these. I will put it in decent, I think, because unlike Nurse's Calling, where you can just accidentally phase past survivors that are healing and not really know about it, at least with Floods of Rage, you know when you should be getting value from it, so you can at least make the conscientious decision to come out of phase if you want to, or if you're not in phase and you happen to just be traversing the map or walking around, you can still get that value. But yeah, it's definitely not strong on Spirit, just decent. So yeah, we'll stick it there. Gift of Pain. This is great. This is a really, really good perk on Spirit. I definitely think that Sloppy is still stronger, more consistent, but I do like Gift of Pain a lot. And I think that the added debuff that it gives on survivors' gen repair when they get healed, which they're going to want to be healed against Spirit, is a nice little added touch to this perk. So yeah, it definitely makes it worth running. And I think if you're running Pain Resonance, it can be a nice little addition to go along with that. Hangman's Trick. Useless. Terrible. And I think along with Monstrous Shrine, these are definitely the worst of the Scourge hooks. They do absolutely nothing for you, basically. Yeah. If you're getting down to a point with Monstrous Shrine that the survivor is about to go second or about to die, it's not because of Monstrous Shrine. It's because of how you're playing, and if the survivors have left them on the hook for too long. Because yeah, it really doesn't make that much of a difference. And I mean, more often than not, you're not going to be like camping a survivor to second stage unless it's very situational, or camping a survivor to death unless, again, it's very situational. Yeah. Hangman's Trick, again, yeah, just not good. Not really good information. Super niche in terms of when you do get that information, and when you do, it's not good. So yeah, don't run this. Useless. Don't run this. Useless. Use any other Scourge hook, please. Except this one. Okay, I lied. So I said that these two were the worst Scourge hooks. This is the worst. Do not use this on Spirit. Man, I want to love this perk so much because I love the idea of it. I love the information that it gives you, but it is not worth running on Spirit for the loud ass noise, sound effect, whatever you want to call it, that you hear every single time a survivor is unhooked. It doesn't matter if they're unhooked from a scourge hook or a regular hook. You hear this loud ass sound effect every single time, and it is so jarring and disorienting for you playing the audio-based killer. So yes, you will be hindered playing with this perk, so do not use this. Shadowborn. Also kind of useless. Yeah, I think I'll put it in weak niche, I guess, because if you do get value from this, like say you have a survivor that has a flashlight and they're blinding you at like every pallet they drop, then yes, I guess you could make the argument that the haste is beneficial, but it's so niche for situations like that, and you shouldn't be getting blinded at pallets a lot anyway, since that would require you to be breaking a lot of pallets, and as spirit you don't do that. So yeah, really weak, borderline useless, but I'll put it in weak instead, because yeah, it's just super niche, just not very good. Oh, it feels kind of icky putting it in the same category as Blood Warden though. Okay, I know, fuck this. This is useless. Don't use this. just don't use this. There's no point. All right, Shattered Hope. Yeah, another really niche perk. I do like the idea of this, and I think that this was kind of a meme and really funny to bring when Circle of Healing came out originally and everyone was using it, and it was super strong perk for Survivor. But yeah, it's just not worth running anymore. Even if survivors bring boons, like the value that you get from this isn't even that good, because they can just go find a different totem to boon, and you're not going to want to be spending a whole bunch of time in your match like hunting down the boons and making sure that they don't get put back up and stuff, right? Especially if the totems are in very unfavorable spots for you. So yeah, just a very niche perk, not very good. Spies from the Shadows. Okay, I really don't mind this perk, actually. I did a lot of testing with Spies from the Shadows recently, and it's definitely more decent than I thought it was. I used to be a big Spies from the Shadows hater, because I hated the noise notifications that you got that would disrupt your tracking. But the more that I've tested with it, the more I'm realizing that it's actually a pretty good information perk. And especially considering that it's a general perk, this can be super beneficial for you if you're a newer player, learning spirit, still getting used to, you know, developing game sense, where survivors could be hanging out, where they could be healing, etc, etc. This can kind of help you navigate that a little bit more and catch survivors out when they're not expecting you to. Yeah, and just the fact that it's a general perk, you don't have to unlock like any characters to get this, makes it pretty decent. So yeah, we'll put it there. There's definitely better information perks, like we've talked about, but yeah, definitely not bad. Definitely decent. Starstruck. Definitely excellent. Very good perk. I said this before when we talked about other exposed perks like Friends Till the End and Hubris, but Starstruck is insanely strong on Spirit, specifically. She does so well at handling these exposed perks like this, since all of her hits count as basic attacks, and she's one of, if not the only killer that can also follow up and get the value you're trying to get out of this. So for example, like if you're running this with Awakened Awareness, for example, like we talked about before, you see a survivor with that aura reading, you hook the survivor. Even if they start running away from the hook, which they're going to when they're exposed, either that or they're going to hide somewhere, but regardless, with the movement speed that you have with your power, more often than not, you're going to be able to catch back up to them and get that down before the cooldown runs out. So yeah, very good perk. And much like Haunted Ground too, has insane potential for snowballing. Because if you have that person on the hook and then you end up getting one Starstruck down near the hook, another Starstruck down near the hook, if they don't realize immediately that you have Starstruck, because I mean, how would they know? They're not a mind reader, and they happen to be hanging around a little bit too close to where you're carrying the survivor, yeah, you can take survivors off guard and really snowball the game that way. Okay, moving on. Strider. do not use this perk. Do not use this perk. I saw a spirit player who recently made a tier list and put this perk in S tier, and it hurt my soul. It hurt my soul so much I can't even explain. Do not use this perk, please. I am begging you. It is not worth a perk slot. If you want your game to be louder, just alter your PC settings, your headset settings, install an equalizer, anything, but it's not worth a perk slot. And if you develop muscle memory on spirit using this perk, you'll never be able to take it off. So that's a permanent perk slot that will be gone for the rest of your spirit career. Do not use this. Not worth it, ever. Okay, Joel. Excellent perk on spirit. I made a video about this perk a while back saying that it was one of her best gen regression perks, and I still believe that. I think this perk becomes a little less strong when you go against the most experienced survivor players, because, you know, they're not going to be dying in their gens. And what I mean by that is they're not going to be dying in like your 3 or 4 gen. And they can also hop in a locker to deny you getting that basic attack hit, which will proc Joel or Surge. But more often than not, the survivors you're going against in public matches aren't going to know how to play around this properly. You will get a lot of value from this. And because of the very quick succession of hits that Spirit is able to get, the amount of quick downs you're going to find yourself getting once you're confident with her power, you will get a lot of value from this perk. Okay, Surveillance. This is a decent perk, I guess, if you pair it with like Ruin. It's really the only argument that I could make for running this. Very, very niche on its own. Completely useless, actually, if you're basically just using this by itself. But I do like the idea of using this with Ruin because it will give you that immediate info of when they stop the gens from regressing. So yeah, you can make some fun builds with Surveillance and Ruin. But other than that, it's not good, so don't run it by itself. Terminus. Also would put this with Remember Me. And these other kind of niche endgame perks. It's not very good on its own, but if you use it with like No Way Out, you know, other endgame perks like that that are delaying the endgame, and you know, they don't have the resources that they can use, they have to wait out the timer anyway, so they can't work on the gate, and they have to stay injured because this makes them broken. That leads for some very, very detrimental snowball potential. So yeah, definitely not good on its own, but can be pretty fun when used in a little endgame build, I suppose. So yeah, we'll put it there. Territorial Imperative. Yeah. Don't really have much else to say about this. Don't use it. Like the only time you're getting value from this, obviously, is if a random Megbot 123 stealths into the basement to open a chest, but like, how often is that gonna happen, right? And even if it does, like, you might not necessarily even be in the position where you can venture across the map into the basement, so it doesn't even matter. So yeah, it's just definitely not worth a perk slot ever. Don't run this. Thwack. Yeah. Also, like, very, very niche on spirit. I would say borderline useless, because not only does it require you to break pallets, which you're not going to be doing that much against spirit, but it gives you aura reading, which you're not going to be able to use either, since you won't be able to see the aura reading when you then phase after the survivor upon breaking said pallet. So yeah, not good. Don't use this on spirit. Thrilling Tremors. I feel like this perk is decent. It's okay. It gives you good info, I suppose, when you pick up a survivor, and you can see like what gens they've been working on. And if you have perks like Pop and Eruption to go along with it, you know what generators you want to be heading to immediately to pop those gens. But I don't know why you would ever use this over Barbeque, to be honest, because it basically does the exact same thing, but just gives you less info, like where you would see like what generators they're working on. Barbeque will also tell you like basically that exact same information, but more exact on how many survivors are there, where the other ones are. So yeah, definitely not worth running over other perks like Barbeque, but it's okay. It's not bad. Tinkerer. Okay, so this perk I kind of left out earlier when we were kind of sorting through the Undetectable / Obliviousness perks, because I do like the info aspect of this perk. I think it's decent. I think if you're using this solely just to keep track of gen progress and be notified when generators are at a certain percentage, then yeah, this isn't bad at all. But if you're using it for the element of trying to sneak up on survivors, again, like it's not really going to get you that much value as opposed to if you use this with other killers. So yeah, definitely still on like the weaker niche side, but it's not completely useless like some of these other Obliviousness perks. You can still use this for really, really good info. So yeah, I'll put it in decent. Okay, Unrelenting. Pretty weak. I do think that if there was any killer that was going to be able to use this, it would be Spirit. Since, you know, like, especially when you're first learning Spirit, like, there's no shame in just sending all your phases, seeing if that muscle memory is being developed and going for those swings, you know, go for it. And if Unrelenting helps you by recovering faster and just, you know, allows you to freely experiment, then, you know, by all means. So yeah, I do think if there was any killer that was going to use this perk, it would be Spirit, but it's still obviously very weak, very niche, isn't actually going to really do that much for you in terms of strength. So yeah, wouldn't recommend it, but not absolutely useless on this killer. Okay, Undone. This is unfortunately also very weak. Very, very weak. I do like the idea of this perk, but I don't know why you would ever use this perk over any other gen kicking perk. Like literally any other one is better than this one. It's just so niche in terms of how long it takes for you to get those stacks, and then the stacks don't even like really, they're not worth it. Like it doesn't block the generator even for that long. Yeah, it's just not good. It's just not good. I like the idea behind it, but in practice, yeah, it's just not great. Don't use this. Sanction Tactics. Yeah, also very weak, very niche. I feel like you can use this perk when you're learning Spirit, maybe, just so you can get an idea of like where pallet spawns are, if you're feeling around husk placement and all of that jazz, which comes with the learning curve of playing Spirit. But I feel like once you kind of have a handle on where pallets typically spawn, tiles, fillers, loops, etc., there's no reason for you to use this ever. So yeah, not completely useless for those that are like just starting to learn, but very, very, very weak. Okay, Ultimate Weapon. Yeah, this perk's okay. It's decent. I think that like this is a good perk for, you know, if you know someone's around in the area and you want to find them quickly, then you can just kind of open a locker and sniff them out. But I don't know why you would ever really use this perk over like Nowhere to Hide, for example, which basically does the exact same thing if you're, you know, trying to sniff out a survivor that's hanging around a gen that's currently being worked on. But yeah, it's not terrible. It gives you pretty good information, and you can use it then in scenarios of like if you think a survivor is hiding beside a gate or in a specific area where they were healing maybe. But yeah, it's still pretty niche, but it's decent. It's definitely usable for sure. Weave Attunement. Yeah, pretty weak. Yeah, I think that this perk can be pretty gimmicky and fun when you pair it with Franklin's Demise. I did like a gimmicky Christmas Grinch spirit build a while back where we were like taking gifts from survivors and then you get like that aura reading around the items that are dropped, but like it's that's all it is. It's gimmicky. You're not actually gonna get like strong value from it, so yeah, no point on really using this perk. And you can use so many other good information perks that do exist in this game. And last but not least, Whispers. Yeah, don't use this perk. You might be fooled by the description that it provides you information on where survivors' locations are. That is not correct. It does not give you almost any information because the radius in which it detects survivors is so large. You can't really actually do a lot with that information a lot of the time. And on top of that, you get to hear loud ass groaning and moaning the whole time you're using it. So yeah, you thought you were tracking those survivors with the audio? Just kidding. Nope, you have whispers in your ear the whole time instead. So yeah, don't use this perk on Spirit. It's not worth it ever. Use any other information perk, please. Even Spies from the Shadows with its loud ass noise notifications going off is so much better than Whispers. Yeah. But that's it. We did it, chat. This is the ultimate Spirit perk tier list of 2025. Completely up to date. I think I'm pretty happy with this. And again, like, these aren't in order by any means. Like, they're all just kind of thrown into the category on a somewhat similar strength level. But yeah, if you have any thoughts or comments on any of the decisions I made, any other further questions that you want me to answer, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Can't wait to see you in the next one, but until then, take care, you guys.